Hi. Uh, I'd expect this event to be just like any other startup event with the 40, 50 odd people, and I just noticed that people are sitting upstairs as well. So, I mean, this is just wow. I think we should congratulate Ashish and his team. I think they're doing a great stuff. So, my first question, how many of you are entrepreneurs? Cool. And how many of you are aspiring to be an entrepreneurs? Wow, lots of them. I just read a quote by Ratan Tata which says, I don't believe in taking right decisions. I take decisions and then make them right, right? So this is for you guys. I mean, startup this is what entrepreneurship is, right? So if you talk to most of the entrepreneurs, they'll say that we don't take time in taking decisions. So most of our decisions are from guts, right? So if you guys are sitting on the fence for too long, then chances are that you'll fall either ways, right? So it's better to take the plunge if your guts are saying, if your instincts are in the right place. I was living a very boring, very predictable life till 3 years back, right? And that's when I decided to start Let's Buy, and since then it has been a roller coaster ride. So I started my career in Delhi University, in Singapore. Before that, did my graduation from Delhi University, did my MBA, got placed in this company called ESYS, which was more of a distribution company based out of Singapore. 4-year-old startup, but a $1.5 billion turnover, right? And I waited for 13 companies before giving my interview in ESYS and got placed there. So I was a management trainee in true sense. There were 100 people in the company, and I used to work with almost all of them on daily basis, right? So I was doing everything from, so I was the first one to enter the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was the last one to leave the office at 1 o'clock in the night, right? So I was interacting with almost each one of them. So I was management training in true sense. And that's what excited me to do something on my own, right? So I worked there for 1.5 years. One of my friend in India was joining a startup, so he was working with Rediff. He was joining an online advertising startup called Quasar Media. So he mentioned about it, and I just couldn't control my emotions, so I took the flight next day and landed in their office, right? So I joined Quasar. I was the second, third person to join them. So later, obviously, that company got acquired by WPP. It was probably the largest and fastest growing online advertising agency in the country. Got an opportunity to co-found another product with them, which was Tyru, where we got investment from Yahoo. So Tyru was India's first contextual online advertising network. I didn't know anything about Google except for search, right? So I didn't even know how they monetize or how do they earn their revenue before joining Quasar, right? So learned a lot of stuff there. And I think Smile Group had a great incubation center. So both Harish and Manish are doing a great job for entrepreneurs. So after that, I got an opportunity to work again with ESYS to set up their e-commerce in multiple countries. And I thought, I mean, this opportunity seems big enough. And problem with me is I get bored very easily, right? So after every 1.5 year, 2 year, I generally get bored with my job, right? So joined this company, was responsible to set up their e-commerce in a few countries. And in India, we were doing a site called Cafe Garage, which got decent enough traction. Something very similar of what we did at Let's Buy, right? So ran it for almost 3 years, and then this company was in bad shape, so they decided to cut down on all non-core business, and I mean, e-commerce in 2005-06 was anyways not that great opportunity in India. So that's when it clicked to me, spoke to few friends. I always wanted to do something on my own, right? So probably I was getting bored after 1.5, 2 years because I used to think, I mean, there was a feeling after 2 years that whatever I'm doing, even if I'm giving 12 hours a day, I'm doing it for someone else, not for me, right? And that was not exciting enough for me. So that's when I decided to take a plunge and launch Let's Buy, right? So idea behind Let's Buy was that, so I always knew that, I mean, it is going to be tough to run an e-commerce site with your own money, right? So idea was to set up something like GSI Commerce. So we went to almost all the brands in electronics, digital lifestyle space, even non-electronic space people like Bata, Decathlon, right? So we went to these brands and gave them the proposition. So we were just 5 odd people, and almost everyone was business head of their vertical because, I mean, that's what you do in startup, right? So we gave them an option of setting up their technology platform, managing online advertising for them, doing customer service, doing logistics, operations, everything for them, right? So, and we managed to sign up with the 8-9 big players, including HP, Microsoft, Samsung, Bata, and Decathlon, right? And there were a few of them. So started with 10 lakh rupees of capital, but we thought that we'll be able to make a lot of service revenue, and we were trying to build a service company, so it should not require that much of an investment. And that's what happened in first quarter. So we ended up with 45 lakh rupees of cash balance in our bank account because most of these brands decided to pay us and experiment with us. So started with that, started increasing the team. So scaled up to 12, 13 odd people by end of 6-7 months. And that's when problems started creeping in because the monthly burn increased to 2-3 lakh rupees a month. And I mean, we didn't have a deep enough pocket because we got the service revenue, but margins were not enough to sustain the company. So I had a couple of people who joined me, and one of them my college friend. So the problem started creeping in, right? So because anyone, or not everyone in the startup can take up the pressure of financial crunch, right? So, and even if salary is getting delayed by a day, I mean, you are no good, right? So, I mean, a couple of people left, very senior people, I mean, in the company left, and we were again left stranded because, I mean, anyways, I mean, there was financial crunch, and then I couldn't sleep because I didn't have a team, so I was sitting with 6-7 management trainees again. But fortunately, I mean, most of these management trainees were probably equally passionate as I was, right? And they could feel the pain I was going through, right? And I mean, thankfully, I mean, these guys rose to the occasion, and all of a sudden, business started doing well, right? So even though these 2-3 senior guys left, but we didn't give up, right? So we decided to give in probably 2-3 hours more a day, and I mean, things started showing up. That's when I reached out to most of my ex-bosses, most of my friends to raise an angel, right? And then we reached out to written to almost all possible VCs, right? So we had an investment banker, and then we were looking to raise something in the range of 2 to 3 million. But it was just not happening, right? So we were working so hard, but I mean, there was hardly any response from any of the VCs. So I don't even remember meeting any VC in that first round of discussion, right? So no one even replied back. And this was in 2009, 2010. So obviously, I mean, that was a tough time, right? And incidentally, obviously, we were focusing more on alliances. We were working closely with SBI and a lot of banks and trying to scale up the business. So transaction went up from, I mean, 10, 15 when we started off to almost 80, 100 without much investment on marketing, right? So I always believe that, look, businesses tend to grow, right? So, and that time Flipkart was doing really well in books, right? So I always knew that, I mean, electronics is the category to be in. No one is focused here. A lot of brands want to spend money in growing their sales from this alternate channel. A lot of customers are looking for a destination to buy the genuine products at the best possible price and with best customer experience, right? So there was definitely an opportunity. It's just that there was no money to run that business. Again, I mean, fortunately, and I mean, probably, I mean, that's why I mentioned that instincts are very important because I think if something is going to happen, it will happen, right? And then all the forces get together with you to make it happen. So that's what happened. So fortunately, I mean, I stay in a house with my parents, grandparents, and everything. And my parents could, again, I mean, see the crunch that we are getting into, right? So started with 10 lakhs of my personal capital. That's the only saving we had. And my mother, one day, I mean, so she could see me crying, right? And I had a 3-month-old daughter when we started Let's Buy. So it was really painful period. And she offered me one thing. She said, look, we've got 2 floors, and why don't we sell one floor off? We'll get 45, 50 lakhs, and which I think is good enough for, for you to run for another 1 year. And hopefully, you'll make this business profitable in 1 year's time. And it was a really tough decision for me, but I said, look, I've already taken a plunge. I've given it a year of my life. And there are, 8, 9 more people who have believed in me, right, who are working with me. Let's take this decision, right? So we decided to sell off portion of our house, raise this 45, 50 lakhs, get into the business. And the day we got the check of that 45 lakh rupees, next day I get a call from one of the market research companies, and they wanted me to connect with one of the venture capitalists, right, who was investor in Make My Trip. And this was Tiger Global, right? Things started shaping up well, right? So everything started looking positively. Business was growing. We ended up hiring few more good people in technology, product, operations. And then suddenly, Tiger was big enough. So I waited for a meeting with him. He visited our office, which was on third floor without any escalators in a shady part of West Delhi. And he was shocked to see how we were operating, right? So there were hardly any chair to offer to any guest whenever he used to come. And moreover, so we were stocking some of the products as well. So Blue Dart, none of the courier company was ready to climb up to third floor to pick up the stock. So what we used to do was take it upstairs, get it repackaged, get it downstairs, and then we used to deliver it to Blue Dart's office in my car, right? So that's what we were doing. So Tiger said, look, you guys are doing well. I'm interested in the e-commerce space, especially in electronics, but I think you're too small for me, right? So let me connect you with Axel. So we were, again, excited because Axel, in India was much better known than Tiger at that point in time. And parallelly, I reached out to Manish, who was my boss and one of the co-founders in Quasar and Smile, right? So he said, look, I'm willing to invest. It will be in tranches. But I think for us at that point in time, it was more than capital. It was more of a mentor, right? Because I was lacking that emotional support. So he decided to join hand, and he got along Nitin Gupta, who was Chief Operating Officer at Rediff, and then he was country manager for MasterCard. So I thought, both of them will actually help us in strengthening our board, mentoring the team, helping us in aligning our vision. And that's what happened, fortunately, again. So Nitin, connected us to Helion. So Helion got excited in the business plan. And things started looking well because Flipkart had raised one round by then. And they were doing exceptionally well. So people started believing in the e-commerce model, right? And so this was, I think, June, July 2010. By the time we got the term sheet, our business scaled up at least 4 to 5x, right? And this was a matter of 3-4 months. That's when Tiger said, look, I'm also equally excited. So instead of 4 million that we were supposed to raise from Helion and Axel, he said, why don't you raise 6 million at the same valuation, right? So we were all excited. And this was the time when we were 13-odd people team, working out of a 400 square feet office in West Delhi, doing close to 60, 70 lakh rupees of revenue every month. And if you look at the growth in 2011, so this was January 2011 when we got the money. By December, or probably I think October, November 2011, we were more than 500 people, so we ended up hiring more than a person a day. We were doing a business of 25, 27 crores a month, right? So it was almost 10x growth of what we had experienced in January. And we were getting more than 3.5 million unique visitors on the site, right? So we were probably one of the fastest growing e-commerce site in 2011. But then we realized that, e-commerce is a tough game, right? So you need two things to run any e-commerce business in India. So one is luck and second is money, right? So if you run out of any of these, you're gone, right? So we could see that, but we were very confident that, look, all the investors are bullish about e-commerce. So when we started looking out, there were already 2-3 term sheets that we got within probably 15 days of looking out for investors. So things were moving fine. So we decided to raise 25 million dollars. And then, we reached out to these couple of investors who wanted to invest together. Then there was this third investor who said, look, this business is getting tough, so you'll need more capital. So why don't you raise 40 million and I'll add another 15 million at probably slightly lesser valuation. But it was exciting for us because at the end of the day, we realized that as a CEO, I had spent almost 6 months of last 12 months raising capital, right? So I realized that, this is going to be tough. So even if we manage to raise 40 million at a slightly less valuation, at least it will take us a year more, right? So to raise it around. So we decided to go ahead with it. Everything was done. Again, October was probably the best month for us. Everything was working in order. And then in December, when we were, all the documents, agreements, everything was discussed and negotiated, just 15 days before getting the money in the bank, one of the investors calls up and says, look, I think Flipkart has raised $150 million. 40 million is going to be less. You need to raise more, right? And his condition was that you need to raise 25 million more from 2 other investors. Right, so and then we said, look, we'll try our best. And both me and Manish were on vacations because we thought, the process is done, right? And we are getting the money by first week of January. But then, that again, shook the overall thing. So first week of January, we reached out to all the untouched investors, and there were very few of them. I tried to convince them. One of them agreed and everything. Then I think, internally, again, my instinct and my gut always said that it's very difficult to run a company with 8 investors on board, right? So, we already had 3, and then if we could have got 5 more, and then some of those investors were already acting pricey, right? So we said it's going to be very, very difficult, right? And still, we were trying. And then this option came in, right? So Flipkart. So it was not just Flipkart. So we decided on going for this option, right? So of strategic investment. And so we reached out to one of the global players who showed interest, but they obviously most of these global players take anywhere between 3 to 6 months, and still it was not certain. Parallelly, we got this option of Flipkart, right? And it was not investors who drove it, right? So we suggested to the investors that in India, a possible alliance could be Flipkart and no one else, because if you look at the traditional players like Tata, Reliance, who are already in the game, they're still figuring out the e-commerce thing, right? And there were proper synergies with Flipkart in lot many sense. And that's what happened, and that's the story, that's the journey. So it's fortunate as well as unfortunate. Fortunate in the sense that it is, I haven't heard of many entrepreneurs who would have seen the complete life cycle in 2.5 years. So I think fortunate enough to do that. Unfortunate because I think dream was to build a $1 billion company, right? So so dream is still unfulfilled, and there's still a lot of fire within. To do something again, probably not in e-commerce, something else, something which can be profitable from day one. So I think, so I think, so that's what the story is. Honestly, I was talking to someone and I said, look, 30 minutes is good enough for an entrepreneur who has done his startup for 10 years, right? So I've only done it for 2 years, so I don't have much to say. But yeah, so I think that's what about me. I'm open to any question and answers, except for anything on the deal.
Did you buy back your house?
Yes, I did. Right. So again, and I've ended up buying a bigger house, so it worked for me.
Were you again bored after 2.5 years?
Not really. So were you bored in last 20 minutes I was talking?
No.
So I think so that's good about entrepreneurship, right? And that's why I mentioned I still have a fire to do another startup again, right? So even though I think I can afford to become an angel investor or a VC and continue investing, but I think that there's still a lot of fire unleft because it's an experience of a lifetime, right? And that's why I mentioned, and that's why I quoted Ratan Tata, because I think most of the people don't become entrepreneurs even though they want to, because the first plunge is very, very difficult, right? But once you take that plunge, then it is very difficult to get away with it, right? So you get it in your blood, right? So I can't even think of doing anything else but starting my own.